everybody. PK Mutch here, and I was asked by Anna to explain the difference between capitalism and commerce because they aren't the same thing. And that's really important when we're talking about feminist enterprise practice, because in feminist enterprise practice, we emphasize commerce, not capitalism. So here's the difference. So here's some core differences between capitalism and commerce. Number one, commerce is as old as time, and capitalism is new, and I'll get back to that. The second difference is capitalism is an interconnected set of systems that mutually reinforce each other. Commerce, by differentiation, is a practice. And the third element of difference is social values. And different values hold up capitalism, and another set of values, different values again, holds up commerce. So those are the three differences. When it came into being, one is a system and one is a practice, and both rely on consent and on social values to be able to exist. So now we'll go a little bit deeper. So capitalism, if we want to talk about what kinds of social values lead to the creation of a capitalist system being the dominant economic system in a society or a country, versus just a corner of it, which is what it used to be. And what kinds of values underpin commerce? And they're quite different. So let's start with capitalism. Capitalism is inherently hierarchical and usually is all about extracting the wealth from the bottom to the top by design, because the values that underpin that is individualism, even Calvinism or certain religions, which basically teach that people who have more are anointed by God to have more, and therefore they are entitled to rule. We used to call this the divine right of kings back in the feudalism times, where basically the only way you could be wealthy is to be born into it. And that has changed for the most part. But now through capitalism, one can become wealthy, but most of the time, the values, the values related to neoliberalism, say it's about the individual climbing over others to get their way to the top. Of course, they're not stepping over everybody. They need friends and help. And once they get to the top, the capital accumulated and the wealth accumulated, let's say amongst our billionaires, actually does circulate, but only amongst the upper class. So the wealth is extracted and then recirculated. So, Elon Musk businesses might invest in Peter Thiel's businesses, and it kind of all stays up here. If we want to contrast that with commerce, commerce is more of a flat structure. As we've already said, values that underpin commerce-based communities or environments, or even nations for that matter, are all about trust, competition, of course. Commerce is about competition and also about profit making. Commerce does not mean that people can't actually generate a profit. But the difference is the profit is not extracted from the community or the people who create it. Typically, business owners in commerce-based environments will then take that money and invest it back in the community, build a church, build a school, pay their workers more, perhaps provide worker ownership options. They tend to reinvest in their community and in their companies, as opposed to extracting it and lining the pockets, if I want to say that, of external shareholders or others who have invested in the space or that place, but want to actually extract the benefits. So if you want to see more about how that works, I have an excellent video that was created by Melanie Rybeck, which really illustrates, it's about 3 minutes, which illustrates that point. I also have a couple of illustrations here to illustrate that as well. This next slide shows visually the difference between capitalism and commerce. And in particular, the black and white diagram also really highlights that capitalism depends on a lot of extraction of free labor, including housework. Putting my feminist economics hat on here, the capitalist system would not be able to survive if it was not for the fact that women stayed at home and did most of the caregiving in society, in many societies across the globe, if not all. If everyone was paid, it would collapse. And it's also about, again, extracting things to the top, whereas the next picture you see things sort of more moving sideways. So capital is circulating, capital, if we mean money and resources, circulating in the community amongst its members. And sure, some members do better than others, and that's okay in commerce. But when they do better, they tend to also consider their community and share the wealth that they have been able to generate more democratically, I guess you could say. The other image after this is really about feudalism then and now and modern capitalism, just to give you an idea of the difference between the two. Feudalism was also very hierarchical, and it's arguable that today's form of capitalism is a bit like corporate feudalism. So I'm going to pause on that slide for a moment so you can take that in and maybe talk about it. And then to the left, there is another diagram which is illustrative of modern capitalism, which really looks at the role of the state in modern capitalism and the role of corporations and basically big money, which we know has really become accentuated far beyond what was known when capitalism first started. And we had, our industrialists and their factories coming, bursting out of the pack to show what wealth accumulation could look like under capitalism, which was unheard of before. The only people who had wealth like that were those who were born kings and queens. So another two slides I wanted to show you is just another visual as well. Again, we've got capitalism showing hierarchical, and again, commerce more democratic, more flat, trading between each other, and focusing on relationships, well-being of the whole. Because if the butcher goes down, nobody has meat. And that it's very localized. So it keeps things in community. And even China, that's a communist country, has what it calls lots of capitalism or commerce on the ground. Chinese groceries and restaurants compete avidly for business and do so. And that is considered commerce, not capitalism. And of course, China has its capitalist zones as they experimented with capitalism as well, but remain undecided, like certainly have not situated it as the dominant way of organizing economy and society. And finally, I just want to say this. Nancy Fraser, as a feminist, if you don't know Nancy Fraser's work, I highly recommend it. She argues quite convincingly that capitalism, which once was an economic system, is now actually a social system. It is hard to uncouple it from our values that relate to things like work hard, you'll get ahead. It is a meritocracy. All of these, I again call it neoliberal values that are not just underpinning capitalist thinking, but actually is the core of society today, to the point that capitalism is no longer just an economic system. It's definitely not a corner of our economic system. It is basically our social system. And hope to see you next time.
It's Sunday and you want me to clean for you. You want me to cook your food. You want me to iron your clothes. It's Friday